Good morning. Steve Wilson from Grand Junction. If I had only known, that is a word, a series of words that just resonates in and about each and every one of our lives. If we'd only known what we were doing, we probably would have changed years ago. But in my case, I was raised on a farm, brought up in a very Hebrew background, and I was fed correctly. My father was a nut on nutrition. My mom was an RN. And we lived farming and eating what we grew. The only thing is, it was high in protein and obviously high in carbohydrates. But we were young and we worked it off. And then as I got out of that school, went into a little time in the service with the Marine Corps, I found my life changing. I broke away from those old instructions that I knew so well. And somewhere around my 50s, I decided that maybe I ought to change, and there was a transformation involved in that. I had to return to the principles that I was raised under. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that in doing so, what I'm going to show you was not prevalent in my college days. It was basically, here's what biology teaches, here's what chemistry teaches. Pretty set, and we believed it. And that was kind of an interesting time because in the 50s, they decided to introduce sugar and take the fat out of our diet. And they made sugar absolutely the most important thing in our life. And we accepted that. And then in 1973-ish, there was a big issue with highly processed foods that were brought in and fast foods and things of that nature. Very convenient. And we were in that place of making as much money as we could and thinking that we would just go on forever. Well, the next thing you knew, the huge increase in diabetes, cardiovascular issues, and these things began to spell a problem for me. And I looked at it and I saw what I had produced from my poor eating habits. And when I reached the age of 50, now I've got children, now I've got grandchildren coming, and I simply really wanted to be with them. So it was about taking a hard look at what I had done to get to the place that I was, and I changed. I went back to some knowledge and some understanding and discipline that goes a long way. And in essence, there was a Bible verse that came up and says, I thought about my ways, and I turned my feet toward your instruction. Psalms 119:59. And it was then that I came into play and started reading the book of Genesis really in a different way. And it said, in simple language, I absolutely built you and I designed you intelligently, and here's what I would like for you to eat. And it was at that time that it dawned on me that fats were really interesting because we were told to eat the seeds. So the seeds became very, very important, and I began to change my whole diet and look at this thing called energy. Because you see, the industry of nutrition, recognizing that our food sources were very poor, they went into the world of supplements. And we went through that supplementary time, accepting the fact that A, you could chelate, you could grind up calcium and get it into the body if it were chelated or if it were in liquid form. They got us to believe that inorganic salts was usable in the body. Just not true. And they also got us to believe that vitamins made from coal tar were really good for us also. Never a talk about diet. In fact, the talk was either high protein or high carbohydrates, and people were beginning to put weight on at a very rapid pace. Well, think about it. The human body, it's a network of complex energy fields. This is the new findings coming out of Cambridge, coming out of the intelligent design people. Dr. Stephen Myers and Dr. Michael Wehe are describing the intricacy in which the cell works, but it interfaces with the physical and the cellular systems of the body. The living forces in the living systems are now, we're starting to see the word frequencies and electricity and things that we just weren't accustomed to years ago. These unique energy systems are powerfully affected by emotions. And these emotions are driven by our attitudes, our purpose, our energy, and now all at once we're capable of really talking about a spiritual balance that we need in our life. This was never accepted in my days collegiately. And they forced this thing about spirit, about walking with a moral compass, if you will. They took that out of our diet and out of our place.